Hey guys, it's BB202 and welcome back to another LEGO Castle video. Before we start, I wanted to mention that this channel recently reached 1,000 subscribers. I know that I've done this a few times recently, but this number in particular is one that means a lot to me. Reaching 1,000 is a goal that I've had ever since I made my first LEGO channel over a decade ago, when I was just a kid. And I couldn't have gotten here without my audience, so thank you all for your support. For those of you who aren't subscribed, you can expect nothing but castle videos on this channel. If that's something you're into, feel free to join. It doesn't cost a cent. My next subscriber goal is 1,500. Let's see if we can get there soon. And with that, let's get into the video. A little while ago, we took a look at LEGO's history of making fantasy-inspired castle sets. For those of you who want to get up to speed, I'll leave the link to part 1 of this video in the description. Anyways, I asked you, the viewers, what you would like to see LEGO take a crack at in the future. I've pulled some comments from that video that I thought were interesting, and I'll be responding to them here. We'll finish up with some of my own ideas for what LEGO could make. Our first comment, Griffin Knights would be cool as an emblem, not as actual creatures. Griffin Knights are an idea I pitched in an earlier video about how there are too many lion factions in LEGO Castle. A lot of people were into that idea, but as this comment shows, not so much the part about incorporating brick-built or molded griffins. I'd personally like to see LEGO try it and make a griffin that's in the style of the Mythica set from a couple of years ago. As far as I can remember, there have been very few brick-built creatures in Castle, so this would be a nice change of pace. I'm in on the fantasy idea, but would like it to be a little more grounded than 2008 fantasy era. For example, the Troll Battle Wheel is fun, but not exactly what I'm looking for in castle builds. The Troll Battle Wheel is definitely one of the more controversial castle sets because there's not a ton in it for the people who don't like the build. Most of the parts go towards those two giant wheels that are holding the rest of it up, as you can tell. It's more reminiscent of something from Nexo Knights than Castle, and we know how most fans feel about Nexo. I don't think that LEGO would attempt to sell something like this for a good long while because of that, so rest assured. I don't know what it is, but although fantasy is one of, if not my favorite theme for many media sources and collectibles, I really hate it in LEGO Castle. The Dragon Masters theme actually got me to stop pursuing LEGO Castle altogether back in the day. For some reason, it was the same way with LEGO Space. I hated the themes that introduced non-human factions. I'm not surprised I saw a comment like this, and I honestly expected more of this type of opinion. After all, Castle had very few fantasy elements for its first 15 years, so there's a sizable group of people who are fond of that era instead of the dragons and wizards we got later on. They should be happy right now though, since the current Castle sets are more inspired by the 80s and the 90s, even down to the remake of Forest Man's Hideout. Even if LEGO pivots to fantasy-based Castle in the near future, that should be enough to tide them over for a while. Dwarves, I really want some and don't have any. Also, Vikings, they could go up against lots of sea creatures and animals. LEGO's made a few dwarf figures since Fantasy Era ended, so this is a possibility. There's the dwarf from 2011, and another from 2017, I think, as well as the dwarves in the sets from The Hobbit. If LEGO were to make another fantasy-based theme, I think they'd be near the top of the list amongst the most likely potential factions. There's also the fact that dwarves on the second-hand market are quite expensive given that they only appeared in a few sets, so it would be great if LEGO could bring them back. Vikings would be interesting as well. They're a real group of people, so they're not fantasy-based per se, but LEGO's always paired them with fantasy monsters. There was the original Viking theme in the mid-2000s, which featured dragons and a sea serpent, and the Viking Creator set from last year with another sea serpent and the Fenris wolf. If LEGO reintroduced them as a full-on faction, I would expect them to be paired with even more monsters. I'm particularly fond of the Vikings, so I hope that they make a comeback. Now, I'll add a couple of my ideas. The first one's obvious and should have happened a long time ago, and that's Elves. We've been waiting for LEGO to try out an elf faction ever since that infamous picture came out during Fantasy Era's run. Needless to say, it's been a long wait. You can't imagine how disappointed I was in 2014. There were rumors of a theme based around elves, and they turned out to be mini dolls. I actually think that theme was well done, but I wasn't in the target audience for it. I would expect an elf faction to look similar to the Forestmen, with sets mainly based around trees and nature. But with the Forestmen still on the shelves and the recent Rivendell set, it's understandable if LEGO wouldn't want to revisit elves as an idea for a few years. My other idea is a centaur faction. A centaur is one of those creatures that would be pretty difficult to create without using a mold. Fortunately, there's a centaur piece in Harry Potter that didn't exist when themes like Fantasy Era were out. This is a potential slam dunk for LEGO, since they don't need to sink money into making a new mold and can now easily recreate one of the more popular fantasy creatures. Before we wrap up, I want to turn this discussion back over to you. We've talked about potential factions, but what about sets for those factions? I think we've all had enough of four-walled castles and blacksmith shops. Feel free to head over to the comments and post the most creative set ideas you can think of. Your idea might just appear in a future video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all those other things that people say at the end of every video. If you want to give me a follow on Instagram, you can go ahead and do that. Link is in the description. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll be back soon.